What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Okay, if we're talking about coolest characters in wrestling history, Razor Ramon definitely has to be up there. It's not a secret that Razor was inspired by Scarface, but overall he was great. His in-ring psychology, his promos, his little movements, the mannerisms, everything was there. The way he carried himself, it added greatly to Razor. Any other guy with this character, and I doubt they succeed. Razor Ramon was among the very top guys during WWF's New Generation era, along with Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, and Diesel. That guy, he was very talented. It's not my era of wrestling, but a long time ago, I used to watch that pre-New Generation era stuff on YouTube, and I literally thought he was a Cuban immigrant. Now, before this video starts, I just want to say, obviously, Razor was inspired by Scarface. I watched it a couple of months ago, and I wanted to make this video ever since. I always had an interest in making that video since I watched the movie. He added some little nods there, here and there, say hello to the bad guy. A lot of the stuff is from Scarface, but there is some subtle touches there that are his. So yeah. Right now, let's get into it. Scott Hall in 1992 was a successful wrestler. He had a stint in AWA where he befriended Curt Hennig. They won tag team titles together. He had a run in New Japan, WWC, and World Championship Wrestling where he was the Diamond Stud. He was managed by Diamond Dallas Page and he found moderate success. Funny enough, he began teaming up with Vinny Vegas for a short time and he became friends with him. Kevin Nash. He was also considered for Paul E. Dangerously's Dangerous Alliance, but that never came to fruition, and shortly afterwards, Scott Hall left WCW. He wasn't happy about being a job guy, and if he was going to be a job guy, he should do it in the WWF. During this time period, Scott Hall was calling New York on a weekly basis for about a year. He got a hold of his good friend Mr. Perfect, and he put in a word to Pat Patterson, who gave Hall a tryout match. They signed him there on, and he was finally in the World Wrestling Federation. At this point, Vince wanted to give Scott Hall a character, but he was unsure what to give him. Vince did consider a G.I. Joe babyface character because his father was in the military, but Scott Hall, he went with something else. He decided, I'm going to quote Scarface in his mind, he said, say hello to the bad guy. He made it his own. Say goodnight to the bad guy, he said say hello. And Vince and Patterson were mesmerized. They thought Razor was this genius, and so basically both of them never watched Scarface and all this was new to them. He went for Tony Montana, I guess. Some say there was a little Manny in there, and the rest was history. They got the name Razor Ramon, and the character was born. Those vignettes Razor filmed were produced by Vince himself, which Scott claims is unusual. He actually went out of his way to Connecticut to shoot these. And yeah, Vince really loved this character, and in that documentary, he was all in. With that said, in the summer of 1992, those vignettes aired and the fans got a little glimpse into the life of Razor Ramon. He was a Cuban immigrant that was rude, arrogant. His actions included not paying the bill, pushing someone into a fountain, and in general, it seemed like Razor believed he was owed the world. He wanted fame, fortune, and the WWF Championship. He seemed like a bigger deal than most on the roster, straight into the upper card he was gonna go. On the August 8th, 1992 episode of Superstars, Razor Ramon finally made his long-awaited debut. He was billed from Miami, Florida, and as expected, he had a great showing. I personally love how he used to threaten the ring announcers if anything happened to his gold. Anyways, the match was just a Razor Ramon highlight reel. He exuded machismo, obviously, and he wrapped it up with a Razor's Edge, which could be a nod to Scarface once again. A couple of weeks later, Razor made his presence felt in a very big way. After telling Randy Savage that he needs a lesson in machismo, he got his ass kicked. Later that night, Razor interfered in Savage's title match with Ric Flair, and he influenced the results as the Nature Boy ended up winning the title. After the match, Ramon continued going after that injured leg, and the Ultimate Warrior ended up carrying him out of there. Shortly afterwards, a tag team match was made for Survivor Series. Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior against Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. As the match was being built up and they were approaching Survivor Series, the Ultimate Warrior was fired. After getting suspended for roids, or growth hormones, which Vince claimed, he started skipping dates, and with the whole steroid trial thing, Vince fired him to make an example. Anyways, they fixed the Survivor Series match by replacing the Warrior with Mr. Perfect. In the storyline, Curt Hennig initially laughed it off. He thought it was dumb, but a couple of minutes later, he changed his mind after Heenan began rambling on and undermined his talents. Eventually, push came to shove and Perfect accepted Macho Man's request, turning face for the first time in the WWF. He was Ric Flair's manager for several months and now he's fed up. He had enough. As for the match, it was good. Perfect got to get some of the Nature Boy. Razor got to show that he can play with the big boys. And the bad guys got themselves disqualified, meaning Savage and Perfect were the winners. It didn't show initially, but when the dust settled, Hennig and Macho Man made them look like cowards. So where was Razor Ramon going from here on? He was going to the top, as his next opponent was Bret the Hitman Hart. Now, you guys know those Rumble showcase matches, where potential stars get a chance to face the champion, like Kennedy, Umaga, Ziggler, those kinds of guys? Well, Razor got his chance at World Wrestling Federation Gold there. In the weeks leading to the clash, Razor expressed his displeasure with Brett, stating that he's a cockroach. Not only that, but he would slap Hitman's father if he seen him on the street because Razor takes what he wants. That's what Ramon was all about. He insulted the Hart family, attacked Owen at one point, and disrespected Brett's tenure in the WWF, stating that 8.5 years to get to the title is too long. And for him, it'll take only 8.5 months. As for the match, I'd say good. Was it a classic? Doubtful, but it was a very important moment in Razor's short WWF career. Brett did his homework, he targeted that leg, and despite Razor's efforts, he was no match for the pink and black attack. Hitman's family watched on in the front row as Razor's promises never came to fruition. During this time period, Mr. Machismo was starting to receive a somewhat positive reception from the crowd. It was the cool bad guy in the fans' eyes, and compared to the other characters, there was a good reason to cheer him. I mean, this guy, he was awesome. So after WrestleMania 9, he beat Bob Backlund at the event, barely by the way. The WWF planned a face turn for the bad guy. As you may know, on TV, Razor was just beating jobbers and he was undefeated, having never lost to one of those enhancement talent. But on the May 17, 1993 episode of Raw, Razor Ramon faced the Kid. As expected, Razor dominated the young gun, and it was just a daily routine. Back body drop, a fallaway slam, all the moves he hits, and everyone knew the bad guy's winning. But then he made a little mistake that gave way to the Kid hitting a moonsault to win the match, and it was a huge upset. It can't be understated that this was probably the biggest upset in Raw history. No lie. Like, this guy, he just comes from out of nowhere and wins this match. And seeing as his pride took a hit, the bad guy came out the following week and said that the Stickman didn't beat him. And since he never lost, he offered a challenge to Stickman. $2,500. Come and step into the ring one more time with me. Not to win, but just to wrestle Razor Ramon. That's it. About that, well, the Kid didn't accept the challenge, so he upped the ante, $5,000. Still no Kid, so he decided, let's give him $10,000 if he gets in here. And he finally accepted. The Kid got the chance to main event Raw against Razor, and Mr. Machismo was ready to kick his ass. Right in the beginning, the Kid almost got it again on 2 occasions, but this time around, Ramon was on full focus. His reputation took a big hit, and it was eating him up. He punished the Kid, and the W was coming his way. The 1-2-3 Kid showed heart and passion, and when realizing he couldn't beat Razor, took away the money and ran the hell out of the arena, and so it was a double countout. After the match, Razor addressed the Kid, stating that the Stickman can run, but he cannot hide, and he's after him. Meanwhile, Money Incorporated were making fun of the bad guy. They're calling him Razor Jabron, and they thought he was stupid coming out and stepping into the ring with a nobody. He let a nobody beat him on national TV, and since he was so embarrassed, he puts up $10,000. It was stupid in their eyes. The crowd was all in on this face turn, and obviously Razor responded to these words. This was after they spoke about him once more. They were offering some demeaning jobs such as housemaid, etc., and the bad guy refused to work for them, and so they attacked. Razor embarrassed them, and he was finally a babyface. Since Razor failed to do it, Ted DiBiase challenged the 1-2-3 Kid to show what a real man can do. When the match went on, Razor Ramon appeared. DiBiase was arrogant, and he covered the Kid in a disrespectful manner, and this came back to bite him. Razor was making fun of him. The $1 Million Man was raging. Eventually, a match was made for SummerSlam, Razor Ramon versus Ted DiBiase. The bad guy scored the victory in what would be Ted DiBiase's final WWF match. As for Razor's relationship with the 1-2-3 Kid, they eventually became friends. Razor grew to respect him, and they began teaming up later that year. Now, during this time period, Shawn Michaels was on his way out of the company. Story goes he failed a drug test and was suspended, but decided to quit. He was going to negotiate with WCW and whatnot. He didn't like their offer or something like that, and so he re-signed with WWF, and he eventually returned. That's why he was stripped of the title during this time period. Razor and Rick the Model Martel won a battle royal to determine the number 1 contenders to the Intercontinental Championship. So both men, they went out and faced each other for the title the following week. The Model was no match for the bad guy, meaning Razor Ramon was champion. Meanwhile, Diesel was demanding Shawn Michaels get reinstated. And upon Michaels' return, he was claiming to be the Intercontinental Champion. He said that he never lost the title, therefore he's still champ. He was attacking Razor, hiding behind his bodyguard Diesel, and the Heartbreak Kid was claiming Razor was the bogus champion. He was taking jabs, and the feud was gradually boiling over. Shawn at one point nearly cost Razor the title, and as a matter of fact, if it wasn't for an official, Razor wouldn't have been champion. The match was restarted, and the bad guy remained champ. It was still the same story in HBK's mind. Nobody beat me, I'm still champion. So a match was made between both men for WrestleMania 10, Madison Square Garden, March 20th. Shawn Michaels, the so-called undisputed champion, against Razor Ramon, the current Intercontinental champion, in a ladder match for both titles. Now, To say this match was awesome is quite disrespectful. It was revolutionary. Did it age well? Depends on what you see. But you got to think back in 1994. Like Jericho, he was talking about this match in a documentary. He said that a moonsault was very cool back then. It was a big move. What I'm trying to say is that this match, if you look at it in the lens of 1994, it was something very special. The two made a blueprint as to how to work a ladder match. Was there ladder matches previously? Yes, but this one made the biggest splash of them all. Shawn showed that he was the star everyone thought he was going to be. The crowd was popping, and it was something new. Michaels was a bit too arrogant, he was flashy, and this ended up costing him, at least that's what it looked like to me. He wasted too much time jumping off ladders, hitting splashes and whatnot, and Razor was much wiser. He won the match, and that visual, man, bona fide star. I just love that visual of him holding those two titles atop the ladder. It's something very special to me. Now that he was the undisputed Intercontinental Champion, the bad guy still had issues to resolve with Shawn. Diesel ended up being the first challenger post-WrestleMania, and unfortunately for the bad guy, an exposed turnbuckle and a jackknife ended his title reign, and so the gold was back in Shawn Michaels' camp. Despite the title loss, Razor's focus was elsewhere. He was looking to win the King of the Ring. He went through Bam Bam, IRS, and in the final, he faced Owen Hart. Unfortunately, due to Jim Neidhart's appearance, the Rocket took advantage to become the King of the Ring. After the tournament, Razor reset his sights on the IC title once again, and at SummerSlam, he faced Diesel for the title. Walter freaking Payton was in his corner on that night, and he was looking to even the odds because Shawn Michaels was at ringside. He was providing distraction and whatnot. That's why. During the match, the ref realized that the turnbuckle was exposed and blocked it. Shawn was trying some dubious tactics, but Razor was resilient, and Michaels didn't help with a super kick on his own partner. Razor took advantage, and he was the new Intercontinental Champion. But he wasn't just satisfied with one title. He also wanted the two dudes' tag team titles. He teamed up with best friend 123 Kid to challenge for the gold. And this match, I've heard, was a complete classic. Problem is, the match isn't on the network. But by all accounts, everyone says it was tremendous. I've seen that Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars, which means it might have been noteworthy. Hopefully they'll add it to the network sometime soon because I want to watch it. The babyfaces didn't win the title though, and Razor continued to defend his gold and be a fighting champion. His next challenger was Double J, Jeff Jarrett. They had the match at the Rumble, and he lost. Razor's leg was a liability throughout the match, and Rhodey caused it. He was to blame for this. And he lost to an inside cradle, basically. Now, one thing to note about Razor was the fact that he never got a shot at the main event as a babyface. Despite being a part of the Clique and their ways, wrestling each other, he never got that one-on-one title shot on pay-per-view. He was stuck in the mid-card, upper mid-card scene feuding with Jeff Jarrett for months on end. And they traded the title back and forth. Razor at a live event, Jeff once again, only for Double J to lose it to Razor's old rival, Shawn Michaels. Now at this point, Shawn Michaels, HBK, was a babyface, meaning both men were friendly with one another. Before I mention that clash though, Razor at this point was in a tag team of sorts with Savio Vega, who in storyline was his childhood friend. I mean, it is funny to think about. He just jumps the barricade and now he's a wrestler in the WWF. Anyways, those two teamed up throughout 1995, and they unsuccessfully challenged for the tag team gold. As for HBK, he was initially going to face Psycho Sid at SummerSlam for the IC title, but Vince changed his mind as the card wasn't really stacked enough in his eyes. So Razor and Shawn went out there in a sequel to the ladder match at WrestleMania. The match didn't really have a noteworthy build-up. There was just one moment, that one, and yeah, that's it. Now, the match at SummerSlam to some is arguably better than WrestleMania 10. It's not unreasonable to say. It's your opinion once again. If this is better, it is better. Who's to say it's not? At this point, the bad guy was a 3-time champion, and in general, it was unheard of. There was nobody that held the title 3 times like Razor Ramon did. Shawn Michaels, he was a star on the rise, and he was the most reliable guy in the company to put on a match during this time period. The spots of the match were nice, and it had a different vibe to the previous match. The fans were eating up everything, and sure, the ending might have been botched, but when you put on a match like that, I don't think anybody minds it. Shawn Michaels ended up winning, as you can see here. After the match, Razor snatched the title away before handing it back to his Clique buddy, showing some respect. After SummerSlam, tensions began to arise between Razor Ramon and his friend, The Kid. During his match with the Bulldog, Dane Douglas interfered, and in an effort to save his best friend, 123 Kid tried going up top only to land on his buddy. Razor pinned the loss on him, and this led to a challenge from The Kid against Ramon. He's had enough of being treated like a little kid, and if this is what it's gonna take, then so be it. Now, about that match, Dean Douglas once again made his presence felt. He went up top, hit an aerial move, and this gave way to a 1-2-3 Kid victory. The Dean took credit for the victory as expected, and he was anticipating the eventual battle with Razor at In Your House. The bad guy was also certainly eager to go at it. He was chomping at the bit to get his hands on Douglas, who was causing nothing but anarchy. About that match, freaking 1-2-3 counted the fall. I don't know why. That was random. And once the bad guy turned around, he threw him out of there. Douglas took advantage and won the match. So there was issues within the friendship. Something was there. So a match was made for Raw the following week, and once again there was doubt over whether or not Razor was going to beat him. But he did. After the match, Ramon slapped the hell out of the Kid, who responded with a roll-up. So all's good. I mean, that's how they settled their differences, I guess. They were back as a tag team, and they challenged the Smoking Guns at In Your House for the titles. And during that match, Razor had the titles in his possession, but then the Kid asked for a tag and screwed up within seconds. He then released all that pent-up anger on Billy and Bart, and Razor was very angry at this point. Like, he didn't know what the hell is up with this guy. We just buried the hatchet, we're all good, and now we're not even on the same page. But it was all good for Razor Ramon. Why? Because later that night, Shawn Michaels, after getting beat up by a couple of Marines in real life, relinquished his Intercontinental Championship to Dean Douglas. Now that he was the Intercontinental Champion, the Dean was going to embark on a great journey defending the titles in all 7 continents. No, that's not what happened, because the bad guy got another chance at championship gold. 12 minutes later, Dean's shoulders were down on the mat, and the bad guy, Razor Ramon, was a 4-time champion. Unfortunately for him, the friendship with the Kid was torn into pieces. On the November 13th, 1995 episode of Raw, 1-2-3 Kid officiated the main event between Psycho Sid and Razor Ramon. At one point, Sid was in position for the Razor's edge when the Kid saved him. This gave way to Razor receiving a powerbomb, and 1-2-3 did a fast count. He was now a part of the $1 Million Corporation. Jerry the King Lawler began sucking up to him, and the Kid began to be a thorn on Ramon's side. He finally got a chance to face the Kid in Your House season's beatings, teaming up with Mari Janae. Sid was the one who took the pinfall, and it seemed like Ramon was going to have to wait a bit to actually get his hands on the Kid. Meanwhile, the bizarre Goldust began stalking the bad guy. He sent in a letter which stated that he was interested in the IC champion, and he thought Razor was handsome, but the champion didn't want anything to do with him. It clearly irritated the IC champion, and he was ready to tear Goldust apart. And that's what he did on the final Raw before the Royal Rumble. He couldn't wait until the event, and he released all that aggression. Goldust, though, fought back, and after the commercial break, they fought in the snow outside. Goldust managed to run out of Dodge, and as for the match, Goldust pulled a lot of mind games. Despite this, Razor had control near the end, but the 1-2-3 Kid interfered and kicked the hell out of Ramon, giving way to Goldust to capture the Intercontinental Championship. So basically, the issues between 1-2-3 Kid and Razor Ramon, they had to end sometime before WrestleMania, because the Goldust and Razor match was planned for the event, so there's that. For some reason, the match between the two was a crybaby match. Why? Well, because the Kid, he was treating him like a baby, basically, hence the stipulation. Razor finally ended this thing, and now it's back to Goldust. Their match on Raw the next night didn't have a satisfying conclusion, as Goldust ran out of there and retained his title, losing by countout. The bad guy challenged him to a match anytime, anywhere, and a match between the two was planned, was scheduled for WrestleMania 12, but plans went south when Scott Hall was suspended. Also add to the fact that he wasn't comfortable wrestling with Goldust due to his character, it just wasn't going to happen. Roddy Piper ended up taking his place. Now, by the looks of it, it seemed like they knew that Razor was heading down to Atlanta, and some believe he handed in his notice, and so he was kicked off the card, WrestleMania. Now, one thing I should note is that Razor didn't want to leave the WWF. He wanted to remain in the company, but they weren't able to match his offer. He didn't like his low downside guarantee, and it annoyed him. He really wanted to stay, but WCW guaranteed him a lot of money. They guaranteed him more days off, and it was a way better offer. I mean, why wouldn't you take that? He lost to Vader in his final match at In Your House, and his final match overall, live events, came at MSG on May 19th, 1996. We all know the Click incident, I don't need to talk about it. On the May 28th, 1996 episode of Nitro, Scott Hall made his return to WCW. He was soon joined by Kevin Nash also. And so there it is, that's Razor Ramon. He was tremendous. I just can't believe they never gave him the world title. He definitely deserved it. Maybe it was because of his substance problems at the time. I think if he stayed, he would have won the title eventually. Maybe 97, maybe late 96, he would have turned heel against Shawn or something. Who knows? But yeah, he bailed at the right time because we all know what happened with the New World Order. And I will get into their story eventually, so there's that. But yes, Razor, he was one of the very best characters of the new generation era. Perhaps the best. Depends on your opinion. But yeah, I think he's top 3 in terms of characters during that time period. He just exuded confidence and machismo. Yeah, like I said, I personally believe he would have won the title had he stayed. Like, he should have just waited a little. Maybe he would have won it. That's what I felt personally, but who knows? Razor Ramon, my favorite match of his against HBK at SummerSlam 95, I guess. Yeah, it has to be the SummerSlam 95 match. What do you guys think of Razor Ramon? Please comment down below. And that's your first video. Make sure you hit back body drop on the like button and perhaps the Razor's Edge on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.